And it literally took me 4 years of trying to get into the industry. So I understand the frustration. And the younger generation now, with the access of tools on Amazon or Facebook Marketplace or wherever now, it's easy to get it, right? And 100%, I echo your statement. If someone says, hey, I got these equipment, let me try, let me practice on you. Or I got a buddy who tattoos, like, run away,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because it even if it doesn't land up, in an infection or in the hospital, you're still gonna potentially end up with an upside down tattoo, right? Or a T instead of a cross, right?
Yep.
There's so much training that goes into tattooing, um, and it's tough a lot for not just those who want to get into the industry, but those who are in the industry as well. Because you said, yeah, I definitely regulation is necessary, but I believe in self-regulation. At least I'd like to see more self-regulation, which means more self-accountability, right? More education, understanding what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And here in the United States, it's so difficult to know what your licensure requirements are, to understand regulations. Just the way that uh, uh, rules and regulations are written. It's like, a foreign language, half the time. So it's difficult to even understand what's required of you to go through and get licensed and to even get into a shop.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And today, I'm very honored to have Mr. Ben Shaw here with me. Now, he's a tattoo artist, but he's also an advocate. He's a speaker, and this is a little different from what I usually do. But I am, of course, covered with tattoos. I love them, and I thought about being a tattoo artist myself, but I'm too scared I'm gonna mess somebody's body up. So but it's near and dear to me, and I know a lot of my audience got tattoos. So let's hear what Ben has to say and what we can do to maybe help the cause. But before that, Ben, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. Yeah, you mentioned your listeners, a lot of them have tattoos. I mean, doesn't everybody? I think some of the recent polls are saying that, well, from the IBIS World Poll, that 46% of Americans are tattooed now,
Wow.
and half of that demographic have multiple tattoos. So it is an exploding industry. And I mean, in 2021, I think it was the same poll found $1.2 billion were projected, and by 2025 to be a $3.3 billion industry. So it's growing quite a bit. But yes, I'm a professional tattoo artist. Been tattooing for 23 years now. Started in 2000 in California, and
Mm.
it spent the bulk of my career out here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've owned a tattoo studio now for 13, and I've been able to employ 7 different employees. Um, love the tattoo world, love the tattoo industry. It's been great for me and my family. But kind of talking about a little bit about cause and things going on, I'm also very active with my regulations because tattooing is a flesh wound.
Yeah.
We're sticking needles in skin, right? And a lot of people sometimes think it's just a pretty decal on our body, but really it's a pathway for dirt and bacteria to enter us. And if done it properly and safely, there could be negative repercussions, and we've seen it. Um, Actually, in 2013, I got involved with our state regulatory board. So in the state of New Mexico, we're regulated by the state. And they had initially put us in with the barbers and cosmetologists because they didn't know what else to do with us. And when I sat on the board, I was the only tattoo artist with a bunch of barbers and cosmetologists, and spend all our meetings trying to discuss tattoo regulation or tattoo, the logistics of tattooing. Right? It's not the same as cutting hair, not the same as doing nails. Right? There's a much more complex process. So they were trying to impose regulations on us that didn't make sense, and we had to do something about that. So in 2015, I and my ex-business partner, I co-founded what's called the Guild of Ethical Tattooists. So we got 20 different tattoo studios to come together in the city of Albuquerque, which we have a high population of tattoo shops here. I mean, in Albuquerque alone, we have 70. So there's just a lot in our area. And traditionally, tattoo shops and tattoo artists don't really work well together. It's just from our history. Typically tattoo artists come from fringe society folks, typically not, coming from like a business degree or knowing how to out market each other. We would, get rid of each other physically.
Right.
And yeah. And so that, although that's changed drastically now, tattooing is very popular, it's very lucrative. We don't have to fight over competition or fight over clients so much anymore. There's still kind of that weirdness, but we were able to get the local tattoo industry a good chunk of the credible tattoo shops to work together to help improve our regulations through going and creating our own board, and that required a lobbying a bill. So in 2015, I got to lobby Senate Bill 275, which created the Board of Body Art Practitioners. This was a board specifically for tattoo artists, consisting of tattoo artists, which makes the most sense, right? Have the professionals in their industry regulate those that understand their industry. And we were able to get that bill passed the first year through, which was my understanding from all the other lobbyists, a little more difficult. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that no one knows much about tattooing in the political world. No one had any real investor interest, so we were able to kind of share the necessity for this type of requirement, this board to help bolster and help this industry flourish. And then I sat on that board until 2019, right before the pandemic, as the board chairman. So, in the interim, before that, obviously, you mentioned speaker, addressing the legislators, addressing groups of tattoo artists, addressing my staff. You can't be meek. You have to be able to articulate yourself well. So I got really involved with Toastmasters. Are you familiar with that organization?
Yeah, I'm actually looking for one here.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, highly recommend. It's an awesome place to screw up. It's a perfect place to fail. That's the perfect place to go learn all the skills of getting up in front of folks and articulating yourself, because it's what they say, one of like top 3 fears of human species. And man, I fell in love with that organization and really got involved with competitive public speaking. So you can go to speech contests, and basically compete to win contests. They actually have the world champion of public speaking through the Toastmasters organization, which is quite the feat to get to. And that's literally it's an international award. So that got me into the public speaking realm. So I really enjoy it. Try to do as much as possible.
Yeah, man. I imagine you probably get a lot of pushback from the old school guys, don't you? Or are they on board with this?
So that's a great question, because that's where we're at right now. We're in this kind of like dynamic, polar, like two, you get 2 magnets of the same side and they kind of repel each other a little bit. And it's unfortunate because they're both magnets. All you can do is flip one around and it'll attach itself, right? We're all from the same industry, the old school and the new school. And I'm kind of like somewhere in between, because I've been tattooing 23 years. When I first started tattooing, I saw the competition, the fist fighting and the negative type of interaction. And now tattooing is super popular, and half my staff is younger than I've been tattooing, and they're well educated and ready to pay their dues and get their licenses and kind of go through the proper steps. So yeah, I mean, initially there's a lot of that, like, don't say nothing, kind of avoid, hide all your secrets and keep everyone out kind of mentality that we call the gatekeeper mentality.
Yeah.
And it's very strong, and it still pervades the industry to a degree, but it is changing, and it's changing drastically. I think not only just this explosion of popularity in tattooing, and the now with technology and being able to share what we can do online, television, Ink Master, LA Ink, Ink Nightmares, all those, like it's really kind of making it mainstream that people are able to. Oh, and now you can buy equipment online. I mean, you don't have to be in a tattoo shop. You don't have to go through a tattoo supply company that checks your credentials anymore. You can buy a kit on Amazon. You can go
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube and learn, watch how-to videos. And, I have my opinions about that, but regardless, it's a lot of people are flocking to the industry that way. So that old school mentality is kind of disappearing there. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of great aspects to the traditions of tattooing. I mean, the aspect of earning your place and hard work and respect and remembering elders and remembering the history is vital, right? The traditions of understanding ins and outs of your machinery and understanding the basics of tattooing and knowing, who the names of the people that your shoulders are standing on, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that is unfortunately disappearing, which sucks because that stuff is really vital, I believe. There's a lot of old stuff that could go away, right? The hazing and the violence and the kind of negativity can disappear. But seeing that's changing drastically, and then man, I don't know about you and about your world and your spheres of influence, but when the coronavirus kind of shifted everyone's mind a bit, I think, like there's just kind of I think a perception shift that anything's possible, right? Change is inevitable. Change will happen, and I do feel since then, even those who used to be, rocks that wouldn't budge are a little more open. There's been a crack in that wall, and they're now a little more open to suggestions and ideas. And I feel that as long as when I'm addressing one of my elders and someone that I respect in the industry, as long as I'm reassuring them that, the idea is to take tattooing further, but also to keep their legacy and the positive traditions moving forward, they're a lot more receptive to it.
Mm.
And that and just a lot of the old schoolers, man, are passing away. It's that the age period. It's just happening.
Yeah. Well, I'm old enough to remember when here in Texas, tattoos were against the law, and a lot of the shops were underground. You
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
you had to get buzzed in the door to come in,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, of course, I have a love for the old school guys. So I mean, those are the ones that gave me my first tattoos. But
Oh, yeah.
like you were talking about people being able to get machines online and do it from home. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel for the guy who wants to get started in tattooing and, he's trying to make money and that's what he wants to do for a living. But I made the mistake where a friend of mine said, "Hey, I got a buddy that does tattoos." Well, when somebody says that, walk the other way. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he
Mm-hmm.
brought me this book and I'm supposed to had all the work that he had done. And I'm sitting there going, dude, this is freaking awesome, And I'm like, heck yeah, I'll let you do my tattoo. And he came to my house, got all prepped and everything. And I'm expecting this great tattoo. And when he finished, I was not only shaking because it felt more like he was carving into my leg instead of doing a tattoo. I bled for about 3 days. When it finally did heal, the holidays were ridiculous. One of my tattoos was upside down, and
Oh.
I ended up in the hospital with an infection and had to get a tetanus shot, the whole 9 yards, because I mean it was that bad. So in that sense, yeah, I feel it is necessary for there to be some kind of regulation there. I feel for the guy who wants to get started and, you don't have a shop to work out of, but just doing it at home is dangerous. Could end up with somebody getting their leg cut off, or their arm cut off.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you're 100% right. There can be a lot of issues when you're operating out of a home because it's filled with cross contamination issues. I mean, just by even tattooing on a couch, right? God knows what substances or bacteria living in that porous surface. and you know, I do agree that it is very difficult to get in the industry, and I understand because it was hard to get for me to get in the industry too. You know, I started trying to get in at 16. You know, when I got my first professional tattoo, I'd gotten a home done tattoo, my first tattoo, and it was in my buddy's bedroom, and dude had just tattooed my buddy, and then he was like using a homemade guitar string, sharp guitar string, Walkman motor type, you know, using a lighter to sterilize it.
Yep.
And yeah, well, dude was gonna do ask for a dragon, you know, like, I want to do a dragon. He's like, how about a cross, you know? And at the time, Tupac was huge, you know. It's like think of that cross that Tupac had on his back. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And I'm sitting there, and I feel like one line, oh, that's not so bad. Does that second line, all right, cool, right on, you know, like, where are you doing it? I'm done. What? What the hell? I go and look in the mirror, you know, and crosses are supposed to be like that. Mine was like this, like a freaking T. Oh yeah, it's funny too because at the time my girlfriend's name was Rachel, so she was a little pissed at that. But yeah, man, I mean, he was wearing gloves, you know, in his bedroom. Of course, it got infected and it was swelling and oozing. And at the time I'm 14, actually, by the way. And my mother saw it, and she was cool. You know, she obviously knew that I was going to keep doing it, so she educated me on how dangerous it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, my buddy before me, you know, didn't have hepatitis, and at least he used a lighter to sterilize it. But my first tattoo was in a very old school tattoo shop. Dude was smoking a cigarette the whole time. You know, had gloves on at least, right? That old school where we like reach underneath the tricep and just pinch the flesh, you know, just and even at that age, at 16, I mean, I was like, I knew I wanted to be a tattoo artist. And I remember asking him about it, you know, and his answer was, hell no. You know, that was it. Like, hell no, that's it. Like, all right. And after that, you know, like again, this was before the internet, right? You know, before we had the access to all these tools. So it was like going in the shops over and over and over again and getting tons of hell no's or fuck offs or, you know, saying, you know, all kinds of shit where I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't eventually, you know, I had to go in the military because that's our family trade. And it literally took me 4 years of trying to get into the industry. So I understand the frustration. And, you know, the younger generation now with the access of tools on Amazon or Facebook Marketplace or wherever now, it's easy to get it, right? And 100% I echo your statement. If someone says, hey, I got these equipment, let me try, you know, let me practice on you. Right? I got a buddy who tattoos, like run away.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because it even, I mean, even if it doesn't land up, you know, in an infection or the hospital, you're still gonna potentially end up with an upside down tattoo, right? Or a T instead of a cross, right?
Yep.
There's so much training that goes into tattooing. Um, and you know, it's tough a lot for not just those who want to get into the industry, but those who are in the industry as well. Because you said, yeah, I definitely regulation is necessary, but I believe in self-regulation. At least I'd like to see more self-regulation, which means more self-accountability, right? More education, understanding what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And here in the United States, it's so difficult to know what your licensure requirements are, to understand regulations. You know, just the way that uh, rules and regulations are written. It's like, you know, a foreign language, you know, half the time. So it's difficult to even understand what's required of you to go through and get licensed and to even get into a shop. And even those who are in shops, they don't know half the time what they need to do to train people or what they need to do to open their studio. And so I think all in general, you know, from those who are trying to get in the industry and those who are in the industry, there's just a huge lack of education in general, in the context of managing ourselves forward in a professional way. And I know this just because I sat on a board for the better part of a decade and got asked the same question over and over and over again, and saw many of the hurdles that people faced with trying to get into the industry. or when people did get in the industry and they got a bad apprenticeship, right? Because just because someone says they can tattoo and they have a tattoo shop really doesn't ensure you that they know what they're doing either, right?
That's true.
Yeah, because I mean, it's even a huge part for you, the collector, to be educated on what you should be looking for when you walk into a studio. In a lot of states they don't have licensing. Sometimes it's just the establishment, or they don't have any at all. I mean, majority of states have some form of licensure, but the clientele doesn't know what to look for. They don't. They don't go like, "Hey, can I see what your license? Can I see your proper certification?" They're too intimidated by the tattooers. They're nervous about getting a tattoo to even inquire about these things. So that's kind of like the mission now. Is to start educating the industry and the people who are trying to get into it, and then those who are trying to get tattooed. I think that's just the most important thing for this industry now is moving more towards personal accountability and sharing information with each other and with upcoming generations, bringing the old traditions forward, letting go of the old stuff, but also accepting the new generation for who they are and realize we can't yell at them anymore and haze them like back in the day. And then knowing how to teach those clients what to look for and how to get tattooed right. Because, man, sometimes people, they come with the best intentions, but they just like, I want, 900 different ideas crammed into this little area of my arm,
Right.
It's, like even that education with them and understanding how to even ask for the right tattoos, sometimes a huge hurdle. So we
Yeah.
definitely got our work cut out for it.
I feel a whole lot better when the artist will sit down and really talk to me about the tattoo before it gets started. I feel a lot more comfortable with that. I mean, when I first started going, you had the old guy, like you said, smoking cigarette and long scraggly beard, and got the cut off shirts, the arms cut out and everything. And they asked you what you wanted. There, usually it was a flash off the wall or whatever, and sit down in a chair, get it done, and you're out. Usually they were an a-hole to you the whole time. I don't know if that was a premise that you had to be an a-hole to be an artist. Although I started going to one that the first time I went, he was really a jerk to me, but he just did beautiful work. And I was like, I'm just gonna let him be an a-hole, But then when I started coming back, he started being a little bit more cool with me, and then we were joking with each other. And
that's cool.
But you got these guys that they don't care. They just want to make that money, and before you know it, you either got a screwed up tattoo, like you said, or you end up with an infection. And here's this generation coming in wanting to get tattoos. They need to be reassured that they're going to get quality work, and then they're going to be healthy when they come out. So, I understand the old school way of thinking, but I like the idea of, hey, we need to have some rules set here. But like you said, they should do that anyway.
Yeah. I mean, now I will say that because of the saturation of tattooing, right? Because there's so many people tattooing nowadays, you have to, right? The old school mentality and the old school types are definitely not surviving and thriving like they once were. Like I said, used to be able to just open a shop and say, I tattoo, and people line it up because it was a mysterious, difficult to get into. But now, ease and access, so many people are getting to it. And tattoo shops are getting pretty high end. We're by appointment only. I mean, you have to literally you're buzzed in, but it's more about that exclusivity as opposed to hiding it. Complimentary client lounge, comfortable seating environment. Each tattoo is preceded with a nice consultation that we kind of let the client fully articulate what they want and do renderings for them. So no, it is now a very professional process. And I mean, there are a few shops out there that are, wham bam, but still they can't be that mean. Right? They're gonna still be friendly and such because um, you're in close quarters with people for a long time. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, that's just kind of the marketplace is kind of bearing that out now. And I've seen some shops get even just higher end, I mean, almost like you're walking into a clinic. Some places go a little above and beyond. Where I have a peer that he actually wears scrubs when he tattoos, even though it's we're wearing masks for the pandemic, and he was always been wearing one. Like a little high end or a little overboard, I think sometimes, because then you feel like it's a little too sterile, right? There's definitely a lot of fun interaction too. When we're getting tattooed, doing tattoos. So just trying to find that happy medium. But yeah, as for like that old school type model, I'm seeing it disappear. But you're talking about how you met the guy who's kind of an a-hole, and then you guys kind of bonded over time, and that's something that's really cool about tattooing is there's a lot of um, connections you make in the tattoo room. I was given a speech to a middle school the other day, and I was trying to calculate how many tattoos I've done in 23 years, and I mean, it's tough to keep count because sometimes there was periods of my life where I tattooed 10 tattoos in a day, bang them out back in the day. And, there's other times where it was fewer, but I've been consistent for 23 years, not any considerable time off. So, I mean, you could see somewhere close to 14, 15,000 tattoos, like a lot of tattoos. And that's a lot of people I've been in touch with and touching professionally. And, and a lot of people have inflicted pain on, and that's the interesting caveat because, like I mentioned, my shop now is a lot more comfortable from the music I play to the way I talk to my clients, to the way they sit, to where I offer them beverages. Is learn from mistakes in the past, right? It makes the experience as enjoyable as it can be with a needle getting stuck in your skin. Because in my earlier years, not that I ever tried to be mean or rude, I was myself trying to navigate nervousness of permanently marking someone's skin, and maybe not aware of the temperature of the room or their comfort level, or if they were really in a lot of pain, and that lent to a lot of passing out or vomiting or all kinds of stuff. But now, like I said, the situation is set up to be as comfortable and enjoyable as possible. But no matter what, the client is in a fight or flight response. Right? Like when pain's being inflicted upon you, your natural response is to either run away or fight. Right? But you can't. Right? You got to sit there and you have to accept it. Like when you get tattooed, it hurts. But you just got to kind of embrace it. And it's like this, like real dynamic situation where you're fighting against this natural urge to get away or fight, and then simultaneously you're trusting this person to permanently change your appearance, right? It's going to look different for the rest of your life. So it's not a trust that you're giving to that person. So it's like this bond we build on acceptance and trust, and it's there. I'm not sure about in your situations, but being in that vulnerable state, a lot of people open up, right? And they tend to really share their feelings, thoughts, and sometimes stuff that they wouldn't tell anyone else. I mean, I've had some pretty heavy stuff laid on me before, right? And many clients have labeled me, as well as a lot of my peers, they're therapists, in the sense of they're ink therapists, give their ink therapy, and half the time it's just tattooing them and it's going, wow, that's crazy, really, wow, that great, just listening, right? And it's there that it makes tattooing so unique, and also gives us a lot of responsibility, because the things we also say and the things we do during that situation are just embedded in their skin. Right? It's embedded in their experience of that tattoo, right? I'm sure you could look at each of your tattoos and kind of recall where you were and who did it and what was going on. And you can remember if that guy was an a-hole, or if he was cool, or had a long beard and cut off and smoked, right? It's ingrained in there. So we as a tattooist have that responsibility to use that wisely, because tattoo artists have abused that, and that's unfortunate. But it's obviously like most humans can take advantage of stuff. But there's also some amazing relationships and things I've been able to do with and from clients that are, you know, I've, I've literally been told that, you know, at one time with a client, he was ex-military, Marine Corps, Special Forces, Black Ops. Like he couldn't even talk about what he did, and that was psychologically damaging to him because he spent, you know, his service fighting for a country, doing things that, you know, he was haunted by. He wasn't able to talk about. Not even supposed to, you know, expose or share, or otherwise you get in trouble. I mean, they compensated him, and all of his battle wounds he sustained. They, you know, instead of like PT and real good help, they just pumped him full of painkillers and basically just told him to suck it up, you know. And yeah, he had his VA affairs and such. But when we would tattoo him, I mean, he was a big. He looked like Stone Cold Steve Austin, but like bigger, you know. And he was an amateur kickboxer, and it's like he was very intimidating. But man, like when you would tattoo him, it was like a totally different person, right? You know, he was not like he would turn into someone soft. He just would connect, and he would like he obviously wouldn't disclose specific details, but he would vent and share, and he would just talk about how this pain from this tattoo inflicting here gave him a focal point. And when he focused on that tattoo, it kind of silenced the demons inside, you know. And we ended up tattooing his entire body. I mean, he had tattoos. We tattooed like literally almost every part of it, minus the super private stuff. And we were able to take him to some contests and do really well. And there was one point he got this big skull on his throat, and he had him like kick back, and his head was leaning back, and I had my palm on his collarbone, and I'm stretching. I'm just going at it, and you know, trying to be gentle with that throat flesh. And as I'm just focusing on it, he's not saying much. All of a sudden, I hear, what the hell? And I look up, and he's like snoring as I'm blasting his throat. Yeah, I'm like, whoa! And when I stop, he's like starts waking up, you know. And so I go back to it, and he nods back out. I'm like calling it one of my buddies, like, hey, bro, come record this. You know, this is wild, because he would have been proud to be like, I slipped through my throat tattoo. But that was just an example of, man, like tattoos are so transformative for people. And I know that it was by never telling him anything that would make him want, you know, I would never say like, yeah, that's stupid, fuck those people, you know, like, or darn, you shouldn't have done, you know, like it was like, man, that's crazy, and kind of help him through his thought processes and allow him the space to vent and stuff like that. You know, I felt like I was able to, I didn't do much other than just provide a space for him to find his own healing. And like I said, I feel like as a tattooist, you know, we're responsible to do that. You know?
There's your premise of a new TV show, the ink therapist.
Yeah, well, that could be interesting. Yeah, because man, I've heard some wild stuff. I mean, we're not held down by HIPAA either. I mean, I could I wouldn't do it, of course, but yeah, I mean, you imagine it. I've heard it, and it is wild what people will tell you when they, because you know, also you're like a tattooer, so you're cool. So I'll tell you this cool stuff I did. You know, like I'm gonna relate to you about all that wild stuff. So it is an interesting scenario for sure.
Well, for so many of us, we get tattoos for a reason. They're either to, you know, to commemorate someone or to show that we're a part of something. You know, some of it's just to commemorate a certain point in time where you did something incredible, you know, or something you love. And I mean, I know the artists got to make their money, but you got so many people come in just for that little butterfly, cute little butterflies. Oh, look, I got my first tattoo, yada, yada, yada. It's hard to, you know, when you're from the old school era to really just say, oh, yeah, that's cool. But I don't know. That's just me. That's just me. I know. When I was about 14, 15 years old, I just fell in love with tattoos. And so I would get different colored ink pens, and I would draw a tattoo on my arm. Say, yeah, I'm going to get this one day. And that's all I dreamed of. And then about guess I was close to 16 years old. I had a cousin that he took a needle and India ink and he put a cross on my arm. And so that was my first official one. And then I tried doing one myself and it looked stupid as all get go. But a lot of mine are the bands that I really love. Some of it's stuff that I've drawn that I didn't have the guts to do myself. Or like when my brother passed away, I got my grandkids' birthdays tattooed on my neck, and just different stuff like that. But you see, it's almost like a fashion statement now, and almost like a fad. Feel like it's kind of taken a little bit away from what we intended it to be. I don't know. Maybe you feel differently, but
I mean, if you think about like not just our perception of tattooing, and we say old school, we're kind of relating or referring to the last 120 years, right? Tattooing in America, when it came over in the early 1900s, back when tattooing started, in New York and made its way across the country, found itself in the circus sideshows and tons of military members and honestly, the I think one of the negative stigma that old school mentality of tattooing came in from, because like let's just say in the human culture there was a transition of women going from kind of like subservient to becoming more equal to us as men, but the predominant and prevailing perception was that women were still less than. And then tattooing, back in the early 1900s, 1920s, you used to find tattooing on the wealthy elite, honestly. There was an article in the New York World Society said that during the transition of the century, that close to 75% of the wealthy New York socialite women had a tattoo. And you could even find in fashion magazines where a tattooer would come to their house and charge them a price of a fine dress. But you also start to see the tattoos in the circus sideshows and the tattooed women, right? They would do the burlesque shows and they'd be showing their bodies off and be heavily tattooed. And at the time, this was a great way for these women to make money, right? And be independent. They could, at the time, it was difficult for a woman to find a job. So this kind of, of course, men were attracted to it and then they were looking at it, but then it also like simultaneously like, oh, they're independent. So like this perception of tattooing and women happening simultaneously with a lot of military members coming back from World War I, World War II, covered in tattoos from their tours and duties and battles they'd won and survived, And most veterans at this time, before Veteran Affairs, were suffering with post-traumatic stress syndrome.
yeah.
So they would, most of them, when they came, I mean, that's where most bike gangs came from. A lot of our veterans came home and they still wanted to fight and shoot and ride fast vehicles, and they were told no. So they said, well, fine, I'm going to hang with my brothers and ride bikes, right? And a lot of them found themselves in a criminal element. So you got like our kind of our maybe like a collective societal kind of a shame for treating our soldiers that way, and then women becoming more independent, kind of, and tattoos were kind of like their identity, and it kind of had a lot. I mean, and that's where this mentality of the old school kind of way, and then get the 60s counterculture, 70s rock and roll, right? And then the 80s, 90s, it starts to pick up and then it just blows up. But if you go behind that, like go earlier, right? Go beyond 18, 19, 16, you keep going back in history. Tattooing, like you said, was always very meaningful and had a really strong purpose. I mean, getting in the 1900s, I mean, it was kings, King George V and his sons, right? Were tattooed. Lady Randolph Churchill, Winston Churchill's mom had tattoos, Captain Cook had brought that Polynesian prince over to Europe and it became a real big fad. But then I say, keep going earlier and earlier, you're going to find tattooing in every culture, some form. Asian culture sure was a little more negative, but it still was predominant, right? Going back to the Egyptians, where it was like protective tattoos, right? Where they would protect their children, unborn children. The women would get tattoos around their bellies. And Romans were tattooed. Of course, they'd tattoo their prisoners, but they also tattooed their military rank. And it was a sign of, and a symbol of some sort of status. And course, talking about the Samoans and the New Zealanders, where like the more tattooed you were, the higher you
Oh
were
yeah.
in status, right? And that's, I mean, we have no idea how old tattooing is. I mean, we know that there was that Pete Bog mummy, Otzi, right, from 5400 BCE or something like that. You know, like way before even we were writing. You know, way before written history, this dude had like 62 tattoos all over his body, and there were some of them were in places like acupuncture, right? So the researchers are believing that, I mean, where the tattoos were under those areas were like areas of degradation. So they're making the thought connection that, hey, maybe it was a place that people would assuage pain and was used for therapy at the time. So
Oh
tattooing
wow.
could have been even older. You know, like we could have been marking our skin since the first primitive person poked their leg with a soot covered stick. Who knows? But it's always had something to do with our culture. It's something that's built into our DNA. And even though today it's becoming, popular, like, God, man, seeing all these kids get their faces tattooed, right? I was at the gym the other day, and this young lady has no tattoos on her body, but then a big tattoo on her hand. You know, it's like, like you got to earn that. But that's my perception. We've been wanting to mark our flesh forever, and even if it feels like it's a trend today, it's still something that is intrinsic in our like desire to share who we are. Right? It's a way for us to modify our appearance, and
True.
even though it's even though it's permanent. I mean, we're not permanent. Nothing about us is permanent. It's permanent ink on impermanent beings, but it's something that someone can't take away from you, right? It's
That's
something you
true.
can have on your body that's yours.
Mm-hmm.
And and even if you get a little trendy tattoo and it was kind of like, oh, it's a small tattoo for fun, no matter what, 20 years down the way, that tattoo is gonna live with you, right? And it's been with you and it's gone with you through some journeys, and it's gonna develop some meaning. It's gonna develop some history with you. So, I mean, even if, like I said, as a professional tattooist, I love that tattooing is so popular because it allows me to support my family and be able to do it as a living and help my artists make livings and support their families, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do get that opportunity when I am. I don't do little tattoos, I don't do little butterflies anymore. That's for the apprentices, but when I do get people who are starting to, get into the realm and they want to start getting something that's more meaningful, we can really tease out that history I'm talking about and really explain, just like I was explaining right now. And then they relay that to their friends, and they relay that to their friends, and it's pretty interesting on, what tattooing is now and what it could potentially do into the future.
Yeah. But what about this trend of I've seen some of these tattoos that glow in the dark, and they're adding other stuff to it. What about these chemicals? Isn't that dangerous?
Yeah, so good topic, because that could lend into kind of why we originally touched base. The glow in the dark stuff, well, it's really not glow in the dark. It's UV reactive, black light reactive.
Okay.
So it doesn't glow in the dark. It glows when those black lights hit it.
Right.
And when it originally came out back in like 2002, yeah, man, like who knows what that crap was? It was like, let's stick some radioactive crap in your body, and people were having allergic reactions, and obviously it wasn't healthy. And because, depending on molecular size, that stuff can travel through your lymphatic system and into your other organs. So, no, that kind of went off the market pretty quick. And then they came out with a more watered down, safer version. I don't know. I think I
But
heard
is
about
it?
it back in 2000. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't do it. I don't want it. And the people that I know that had it done, I know their experience isn't the best. It looks like it doesn't look good, obviously, unless it's under light. You can't really see it. You can see something there, and when it glows, it's very temporary, right? Like people that have had them done, they talk about how to get them touched up often. And again, that just doesn't make me feel comfortable having to put something that's reactive, like a known chemical, right, into someone's body that you have to continually put in to have good results. So, yeah, I'm, like I said, I have to look at the MSDS sheet on that to see if it's legit and safe, but we don't offer it, nor do I really advise people to do it.
Yeah, well, that's another reason why we should have some kind of regulation, because otherwise people are going to say, oh, look, there's this new trend of whatever they put in the ink to make it look different. And somebody's going to come out with something that's going to really get somebody sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where we're at now, in the sense of, we originally kind of touched base because of my posts and my notifying the industry and the world, really, and some that cares in the context of tattooing, about a major federal bill here in the United States that came through, the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act, which is essentially, we've been now, officially labeled an injectable cosmetic. We use injectable cosmetics, and that's how we're going to be regulated, right? Our products will be regulated as such, and the FDA is looking to have all of our ink manufacturers, and, well, anything really that we sprinkle on, spray, or put on the human body, um, basically report to and supply all ingredients and all elements that go into it, so that we can, scrutinize it and make sure that it's safe for human use, as well as have all the ink manufacturers' facilities, get under annual inspection and such like that. Which, you're right. I mean, there's definitely some. It's the evolution of things, right? With the growing number of people collecting tattoos, we have to keep in mind public health and safety. We have to keep in mind that a lot of people are getting this done, and because a lot of people are wanting it, and as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't know exactly what to look for. They'll just go to anyone, and some people could take advantage of that, right? They're like, yeah, I can tattoo you, and either doing unsafe practices or even using some unsafe products. Now, the tattoo industry has been quite responsible on the professional level in that sense, because, we do have so many tattoo artists that tattoo and utilize so many of the same products. There's always been a good method of kind of, same thing with the not having good customer service. If you find a product that's not very satisfactory, or you've had any issues with it, that stuff gets basically usually removed from the industry quite quickly through our networks. And the problem with having, like I said, self-regulation, I believe, is the best type of regulation, because having outside regulations in there, they're not properly able to share proper research or do proper research on our particular process. Meaning, if you look at, think of aspartame and sucralose, or sweet low and NutraSweet, right? They've done tests where they've taken a can's worth of it and pumped it into a rat, and they realized that it gives the rat cancer, right? And like, well, duh. I mean, you pump somebody full of too much, bananas, and something, potassium's going to kill you, right?
Exactly.
It's all about balance. And when we inject ink into the body, and those, the ink is a liquid because it's suspended. It's a pigment suspended in a carrier, typically rubbing alcohol, distilled water, witch hazel, sometimes some glycerin and stuff that's fairly safe. It makes it liquid, gets it in your body absorbs that, and then the pigment stays there. It's a larger molecule, where your immune system's macrophage come and basically grab onto it, and it's so large it'll keep it in place. And as this molecule or this macrophage eventually dies off, another come and eat it, right? It's just like a perpetual immune system just kind of holding these molecules in place. And so they're in an inert state, and they're fairly safe, just like our dentists were putting, back in the day, our amalgam fillings and stuff in our mouth, right? It's fine as long as you don't mess with it, right? But if we start allowing outside industries to not have our input in this, and they're just saying, well, if we take these products and we take a whole bunch of it and we start shoving in your body every day, of course it's going to have some negative reactions. But if you take a small amount and you put it in your skin and let it sit, it's going to be just fine. It's actually been just fine for decades, right? So that's where we're at right now. Is, yes, I believe that we do. I mean, we're becoming regulated. This is a law. I mean, we are regulating industry, and it's continuing to grow. But we need to be involved with it. We need to give them the proper steps and processes that we use. So that way they can make educated decisions to ensure that they allow us to do our practices the way that we need to. And some of the issues that we may run into is if they're trying to overly regulate us and say, hey, we want you to do X, Y, without any sort of input from us. And let's say, well, we can't do X, Y. We can't do it. We can't provide that. So then we'd have to then maybe use other products that aren't as safe, right? Because they're, we have nothing. We're not going to stop tattooing. Like, so it's just run into a whole rigmarole of like finding the balance between, yes, we need regulation. Yes, we also need to be involved with it. So that way we can work together and move forward together. And right now, this bill just hit us kind of blindsided. And anyone that's listening to this that's been involved for a while, they'll be like, I've been talking about it for years, because there have been people who've been mentioning and talking and fighting with this for a long time. It's just the industry, because of that, going all the way back to the beginning, that industry doesn't communicate well with each other. Old school, new school, kind of not a lot of communication. We're not sharing a lot of information. It's like, what happened? But now with the pandemic has shifted. A federal bill has literally been dropped on our lap. It has happened, right? Even if there's been tattooers in the past, like, whatever, it won't happen, we're fine. It's like, no, it happened. It's here now. And so we have to literally unify or die. Right? I mean, that's kind of our only options right now. Mm-hmm. So that's currently the mission, is to unify the tattoo industry, so we can start building bridges with each one of our states, start getting input from all of our tattoo artists, come together, provide the scientific data we need to share with the FDA. So that way, when they're promulgating rules, we will be able to, have our interests shared with them, and we'll be able to, protect the practitioner and our livelihood, making sure that we're able to have the products we need to work safely and professionally in the future.
Well, I mean, I'm in my 50s, and I'm still going to get tattoos probably till I die. So I always want the tattoo industry to be there. So us as customers, what can we do to help? Is there anything that we can do to help?
Right now, in the current phase we're in, it's all about education and awareness, and urging tattoo artists to come together and to start joining. Right now, our biggest ally is the APT, the Alliance of Professional Tattooists. And the reason why I say that, they've been around for over 30 years, and they're a nonprofit organization, and they were built to disseminate health and safety information and professionalism throughout the industry. And they're recognized by the government as a credible constituent base because of their long-standing good credit. They're also an older organization with a lot of old school tattoo artists, which are great people, forward-thinking people, but definitely not tech savvy. So a lot of us are coming back and bolstering this organization to build its membership up, build up its abilities to share more information, to get more people together, and anyone in the public who could share, like I said, share the information that's coming off of any of my peers' social media, urging their tattoo artists to check out the APT, are some great initial steps. From there, we will have other phases that we'll be going into, and how we are going to continue to grow, eventually looking to get grant funding so we can get our scientists on this stuff. And so it's basically right now, what could we do is just share the information and have conversations about tattooers coming together and unifying.
Do you have links that people can go to?
Yes. Yep. On my predominantly on Instagram, but also TikTok, LinkedIn as well. I do have a current discourse group that is building up with a lot of industry professionals. It's gotten to the point where we're building a Discord group because of just the cacophony of conversations going on. So we're going to break it out in sections and sessions, and in there will be links to the APT, to the other organizations we're affiliated with, like the European Society of Tattoo and Pigment, who we're also working with over the pond. The Association of Food and Drug Officials; those are the ones who directly inform the FDA. And then also the National Environmental Health Association, who we're also working with our statute. So yeah, social medias, Linktree, Discourse, and Discord group. We'll have all the space we need there, and then just all the posts that are on the social media. Definitely share.
And you have a website too, right?
Yeah, Ben Shaw Archetype, all one word, .com. That's my website that shares a little bit more about me. I'm also, I mentioned, a public speaker, and also talking about this on many platforms. So anyone's interested in looking to have me come speak, I'm more than happy to do that, or more future interviews. BenShawArchetype.com would be a good place to start.
Awesome. Hey, go ahead and plug your shop, man.
Archetype Tattoo, archetypetattoo.com. Nice and easy. We're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've got an amazing crew, some of the best in the Southwest. Again, in a nice, clean, and professional, safe environment, doing high quality work. Coolest people ever. They're there to make the tattoo session not only enjoyable but memorable, and make the client feel amazing. So.
And you get champagne and caviar.
Have you requested? I guess it'll be sparkling cider.
What's your address out there?
2019 Manal Boulevard, Northeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87107.
Ben, it's been awesome having you on the show, man. And I think this has been a really great conversation. Hopefully there'll be folks to, number one, be a little more aware, and also can help out anyway.
Likewise, Kyle. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Great conversation. Definitely, anyone on your platform, definitely appreciate any support. If you love tattoos and you want to see them thrive and move toward a more prosperous future, definitely get in touch, and maybe we'll get you in the chair too sometime.
Oh man, I might have to make a trip out there just for that.
Not far away.
But yeah, man, thank you again. And I also want to thank all of you out there. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, and I hope you'll come back. For my regulars, thank you for your support. Because of you, I get to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless, and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network